In early July, the Commissioner's Court in Brazos County, which contained Texas A&M, voted to remove an on-campus early voting location to an off-campus location. Throughout the whole process, students have been very, very vocal that this is suppressing the vote.
You should be ashamed that you don't even know the law that you're responsible for abiding by. And a lot of people here today are completely fed up.
This is definitely a form of voter suppression and should have never been approved in the first place.
Which is the protocol.
The biggest reason that was provided by commissioners, especially Commissioner Nancy Berry, is that she had heard complaints from non-student constituents saying that they face, challenges or have difficulty navigating campus when they go there to vote.
We felt it was easier for the population to go to City Hall than it is to park on campus. Many residents are not familiar with campus, and to park and to walk about a city block to get to voting was not necessarily convenient for them.
They were mostly, I think, advocating on behalf of the more elderly population and people who would not have a easier time navigating campus, which I completely understand. But we do provide free early voting parking in the garage right next door to the MSC, and there are signs everywhere.
Commissioner Berry also stated that the voting location on campus traditionally had low turnout, but data that we reviewed from the county itself showed that this location actually had the second highest number of early voters for general election in 2018 and 2020.
When I asked the voting clerk about our last election and she said the MSC was the second lowest, I did not realize that she was referring to the primary, which is usually a low turnout election to begin with. That's probably my fault because I asked for the last election and I was given the last election. I didn't specify, the 2020, presidential election. It was a mistake to close the MSC. And so we have said that all future early elections will be held at the MSC. Because it was a mistake, we've made arrangements to have university bus service go from the MSC to City Hall to accommodate students. The interlocal agreement that the county signed with the university was to pay for up to $5,000 for the transportation.
They have agreed to contribute $5,000, but we have crowdfunded about $10,000. We've covered most of the costs, and the commissioners weren't helping with logistics or planning or anything like that. We as students made time out of our days to go meet with TAMU Transportation Services and advocate it and work it out and figure out a bus route. We currently have an added route for all of early voting. I believe it's going to be running 12 hours a day, so leaving every 20 minutes, and it's right by a bunch of dorms.
I can say all the residents of College Station who aren't students have been very supportive, very helpful of our efforts. When I say there's been no one on the commissioner's side, there has been no one on their side. So for them to go so out of their way to not reinstate the MSC, it's very clear it's voter suppression at this point.
Voter suppression can be both intentional and unintentional. Sometimes you see it as a result of specific policies that are put into place. Sometimes it's a result of poor planning, and the range of that is what often, when you take all of those sort of things together, you end up with kind of a voting environment that is not all that friendly to some voters.
How can we expect freshmen who've never voted before, don't have a car, to get out to the elections office and do it themselves? Obviously, there's been things put in place to make voting so difficult in this state already. If you didn't know voter suppression was a thing, there's no way you would have realized that them moving a poll across the street, which is the terminology they love to say because it seems like a logical justification, but anyone who lives in this town knows it's not just an across the street commute and knows all the things that go into that commute to City Hall.
I think when you look at cases like the one on the A&M campus, for those students, this was a polling place that was very accessible to them. It was reliable. And so the concern was that for people who no longer had that immediate access, what would that turnout look like? There's been research about what happens when the distance between a voter and a polling place increases and how it harms the likelihood that they will be able to vote. If someone is unable to cast their vote, does that election lose integrity for that one person? The idea of a working democracy is dependent on people being able to make themselves heard and being able to participate in that democracy and choose their representatives. And if you don't have that, then, for a lot of folks, that full sort of democracy is kept out of reach.